Welcome into the Barbecue Live podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Mueller. We are powered by Hound Hogs BBQ Supply. Check them out on Instagram, Facebook at Hound Hogs BBQ Supply. So I want to welcome in Chad Urbonovic. He is with QueFellas BBQ. He's based out of Lapierre, Michigan. Chad, welcome to the show.
How are you?
I am doing well. And thank you again for joining me. For our listeners, had the pleasure of meeting Chad at the Famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Challenge up there in Westland, Michigan, which is suburban Detroit area. Actually, Chad actually dominated the field that day because he got number one in chicken, he got number one in ribs, walked home with the grand championship, and got himself a golden ticket. So, I don't know how much of a better day you could have had, but that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, especially for taking the time away from barbecue like I have. I took a couple years off, didn't compete at all, and then kind of was taunted into getting back into it a little bit this year. Some, friendly ribbing, and it seems to be working out pretty well. So I'm glad I got back in. I'm glad I did the Famous Daves. Um, that was an interesting contest, considering I'd never done anything under the EAT methodology or, even to be selected to go cook it. I figured they're going to have, email after email after email, a few hundred teams trying to get into each one, so the first hurdle is getting selected.
That's right.
And unfortunately we had two teams that were no show, but I guess that works out better for the rest of us.
It does. It does. Definitely increases the odds. And
right.
to Chad's point, if you've never cooked a World Food Championship event, they use their judging is what's called as the EAT method. So they're looking at execution, appearance, and taste. So that is a far cry from what many of us are used to on the KCBS side of things. Actually, it's a far cry from really just about any barbecue sanctioning body. I mean, MBN, GBA, KCBS, SCBA, it's just much different. And so what's really important and something that that was my second time cooking and EAT, sanctioned or a World Food Championship contest. The execution part is interesting because they actually make you write what it is on the box, right?
Yes.
And what I learned is, at least what I found out, probably should have known this before the fact, but it is what it is. If you write down that you're putting in, sweet and smoky Memphis style ribs, they better be sweet and smoky.
Yes. So yeah. So now you're looking at a whole nother strategy, right?
Yep.
It's not just a KCBS where you're kind of, okay, how am I going to present this box, right? I mean, because you can only present brisket so many ways. You can do chicken so many ways, right? This is, you have to almost take a thesaurus with you to I want that special word to describe this. So you're also thinking about that too. How do I give you enough information but not too much information? How do I make my information stand out from, I mean, because let's face it, smoked chicken is smoked chicken.
Right.
I mean, how do you really describe it? I put it on the smoker, right? You got to figure out how to, just, and that's the worst thing for me. I'm glad my cousin was there with me because here, buddy, you're tasked with that. And don't bother me until you're done.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, clearly it worked. Clearly, right? Yeah, number one in chicken, number one in ribs.
Right.
That's right. It worked.
Whatever he wrote down, I hope he got a picture of it because I think we're going to need that copy again here in November.
That's right. So I want to come back to the EAT methodology because I think it's important that other teams, other cooks out there that are listening, I think it's important they understand that before going into it. But let's start. Let's take it back to your journey, right? Your barbecue journey. I know you said you've been out of competing for a couple of years. Saw this come about. Had a couple buddies maybe talk a little smack to you, and you got fired up and said, "All right, I'm doing it." But how did this all start, right? How did you get into competition barbecue to begin with?
So my cousin, who you met at Westland, him and his wife, how they got into it, I'm not exactly sure. They would go to these little rib burns, 1 day rib cook-offs, if you will. And So he would invite me down, hey, if you're not working, come on down, hang out, we'll do this. Um, I had no idea what it was all about. And I'm just there to hang out and socialize, drink a few beers and what have you. Then they started doing the KCBS contest. Same thing. I'm just there to help. If you need help, hand me this, hand me that, go get this. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know about building boxes. I didn't know, as far as I'm concerned, this is just barbecue. And I mean,
Right.
yeah, how difficult can this be, if you will?
Right.
Well,
It's yeah, you're right. It's you have to put some thought into it.
yeah, you're a whole lot of thought. It's
Mhm.
not just showing up and cooking meat and leaving. I mean, you can make it that if that's what you wish. If that's all you're in for it, just a weekend away to go have a little bit of fun, make it that. So they were doing that. I was just there helping, and then I kind of wanted to see what I could do with it, on me. So found a smoker, went and bought it. Uh, did one contest, not so great. Did a couple more of the Saturday only kind of rib cooks, and started kind of was in the middle of the pack. Then Great Lakes Barbecue Association up here in Michigan, they hold a 101 class in technically they should call it a 201 class because it's pretty advanced for what they do. So I went and took that and was still doing the backyard rib burns and did a couple my first KCBS. I missed the rib turn in and gave up on the rest of it. Now I was okay, this ain't for me.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
after getting, picked on for probably 2 years about missing a turn in, which I owned it. Um, I went to the class again, you know, because every year someone else is teaching a different portion of the class
Right.
and they cover all four meats and boxes. Then that year, I kind of went on a run where if it was a rib burn in Michigan and I cooked it, I was either first or second.
Yeah.
I think I won 8 here in the state of Michigan and 2 in Indiana. So, okay, I'm going to dip my toes back into KCBS. Kept getting my butt kicked a little bit in KCBS, and I never could correlate why. And I'm doing great in these single day just ribs, but KCBS, you know, I pulled a DAL as well, but I never kind of put it all together. I get a call here or a call there, but it was never consistent. So shortly after COVID, I was like, meat was kind of quality competition meat was kind of hard to come by.
Hmm.
So, and I wasn't willing to pay, $300-400 for a brisket for something that I knew I was going to get any great return back out of.
Right.
And I never really kind of took KCBS serious enough to like, I was going to be, you know, uh, Brad or Tim Shear or,
Right.
any of the like. I knew I wasn't at that caliber. Took a couple years off and Jim, who you met down at Westland, he cooked with Skippy. He
Hmm.
kind of taunted me, was kind of picking on me a little bit. Hey, Westland's having a KCBS this spring. Why don't you, be just like old times? Like, I got this new cooker. I haven't done a timeline on it. I was excuse after excuse after excuse.
Hmm.
Finally, I called the organizer. I was like, look, how many teams you got? He's like, we're good for a qualifier. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm thinking about it. He's like, if you show up, good. Bring some money. You pay me when you get here. It wasn't until that Friday morning I made up my mind 100% that I was going. Got down there and didn't even have a time on this
Hmm.
new outlaw for me. And talked with Skippy, talked to another team that had a patio, and kind of come up with they verified the timeline I was thinking of, and went ahead and went after. And I kind of held my own a little bit against some great cooks that we have in Michigan, some from even out of state. Middle of the pack finish, which, for not being in it for 2 years, I'll take it.
Sure.
And I saw the email for Famous Dave's, and I was like, why not? No entry fee. All I got to do is cook chicken and ribs. Great. Well, there's a wild card in here. Oh,
Yes, there is.
um, and they're not my favorite thing to cook. Wild cards. I
Hmm.
like the traditional. Everyone's cooking borderline the same thing. Um, and even on the chicken or ribs, you can do as much or as little as you want. I just ran my KCBS um, chicken and ribs.
Right.
I mean, granted, I did do a little bit of research. I reached out to a team that did it last year. Apparently, this was an event they were testing the waters on last year.
Hmm.
I think they did it in Nashville. So
They did.
Janky Leg went to it. So I reached out to the boss down there at Janky Leg, Allie. Hey, what can you tell me about this? And she's like, "Well, you have you read the Eat?" And I'm like, "What's Eat?" Like, go read that and then come back and then ask. Okay, I read it. I didn't understand none of it. Okay, taste, because KCBS, you kind of know what they're looking for, right? Eat, I mean, it leaves it
Mhm.
wide open. As long as you can describe it well, you can pretty much as big as your imagination. So went back and forth with her a little bit. I'm thinking about doing this for wild card. I'm thinking about doing that for wild card. She kind of told me what they did. I said, well, I don't know if that's possible. So I went, tried it a couple times, and I did cheesecakes for the wild card. And I tried it a couple times here at the house, and okay, I'm not a big sweet guy, so I don't know if this is good or not. You give anyone free cheesecake, they're going to say it's great. You know,
Of course.
yeah, I mean, anything free is great. So, I just stuck with it. I kind of screwed it up a little bit there, so I think that's kind of what hurt the score a little bit. But overall, I'm happy with everything that came about it. So now I'm back into the KCBS. We're actually going back to Westland next weekend.
And if I'm not mistaken, that golden ticket gets you a entry into the World Food Championships in November, correct?
Correct. Yep. And I still have got to sign up for that. I just got the email from them the other day. It's been on the back burner.
Well, at the end of the day, I think it's really cool to, to get into the sport, to have, have that camaraderie with your buddies, like we all do, to get
Yes.
into it, take a little bit of a break, jump right back into it, basically into something that, is really far different than most of us have ever done. And, to still be able to come out there and, really, I mean, at the end of the day, first in chicken and first in ribs. And I think you got the wild card was a pretty good score too, wasn't it?
I think it was 93 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where that puts you on this. I don't know where that puts you on the rankings there with that. But again, it was just a phenomenal cook. And I do think that, there is something to be said for desserts for the wild card. Just from my observation, again, it's a small sampling. It's only two contests, but
Right.
I remember distinctly actually Jordan and Allie with Janky Leg. They won in Nashville. They won the dessert category. In fact, they won the GC, but they won the dessert category with cheesecake.
Yep.
So,
And that's
you
where I
know,
got the idea from. So
so
I
I think
then
it's
now I got to
important.
go learn how to do how do I cook cheesecake? I mean, much less, and then do it on the smoker.
Right.
So I mean, my inner fat kid was a little happy learning all that, but and I'm not one to do all these fancy uh meals, as you would say. I'm a
Right.
kind of a meat and potatoes guy. I could probably eat a hamburger, cheeseburger 4 or 5 days out of the week. And I'm content with that. So stepping out of my element into something like cheesecake was great learning experience, and it kind of helps me step away from the simple stuff.
That's right. And you hit the nail right on the head. I think it's KCBS, it's no secret. You're absolutely cooking to a certain profile. Now, depending on where you are in the country, that profile might change slightly.
Right.
But to your point, you really can't get all that creative. You can, I suppose, by the letter of the law, although I'm sure the judges and the high brass of KCBS would love me for saying this, but I'm sure if you got too unique that it would hurt you. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
you know, even though they're supposed to judge anyway. That's beside the point. But I think it is fun to be able to cook a contest like that where you have a wild card, which literally can be anything. We saw cheesecake. We saw, I think there were some armadillo eggs as well, or they might call them, maybe they're Scottish eggs, but we saw those. We did the rack of lamb, which we completely uh, just annihilated it. I mean, we cooked it to death. Anyway, our score shows that, but it happens. But to be able to do that, really for the first time, that was the first time that you competed in a dessert. Well, in a full category like that, right? And you
Right.
smoked cheesecake, which I thought was pretty neat. And so, for me, it is nice to have a little change of pace and to be able to sit there and have to, like we talked about, you've got to write down, what's in the box and put it on the box. And the wild card, of course, is much different because it's not blind judging, right? Let's talk about that because that's interesting. So what's this? Of course, I know the setup. My listeners don't, but what's the setup like for the wild card? How do you turn that in? What's that look like?
So you get a matter of fact, I just got them here the other day from Amazon. You get a silver platter, probably 19 inches long. It's oval, um, and you get kind of a little bit of free range on that. How you want to set it up. So we set up, but you have to do 5 entries because there's 5 judges, and then you have 1 entry of a display. And from some of the rules I read back after the whole thing, I'm glad I did it after the fact.
Right.
Was you can use kale, but you can't use kale in certain ways. And I
Hmm.
believe it was to like elevate certain things, maybe.
Interesting.
Again, I read it after the fact, and I was like, "Oh
Right.
well, that doesn't make sense anymore." So I'll have to go back and really read through them. But you get that, and basically, in our instance, we some of the stuff wasn't even fancy. Literally, I think at 11 o'clock, my cousin Dean walked behind Famous Dave's to the dollar store and found some dollar store paper plates that had a silver. It matched the tray great, um, from the dollar store.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna make it work, and I mean, I was happy with it. Uh, the wild card stuff is difficult for me because how do you base what I did versus what you did? They both are going to
Sure.
be good in what makes one, how do you, there's the hardest part for me is what's the consistency you're looking for, as
Right.
far as like ribs, if you turn in ribs that are falling off the bone, you did something wrong. But if I
Right.
turn a cheesecake in and you turn a cheeseburger in, both are right in a sense, but what do you
Sure.
base it on? What's wrong? You know,
My understanding is, and again, I've only done two of these, so
right.
I'm learning
We're
too.
all
Just like,
learning.
yeah, I'm learning. But my understanding is, the execution portion, the E, is given the most weight. Very similar to in KCBS how tenderness is given the most weight in terms of the score. I believe KCBS is 60% of your score
Yeah.
is tied to tenderness, and I think it's either 60% or very close to that number with the EAT method. And so I think to answer your question, again, this is purely speculating. I'm just guessing that if you had two great entries, right? Very different. You have cheesecake and you have a cheeseburger, extremely different. Sweet versus savory, dessert versus a main course, et cetera, then I think it does come down to the execution. And I think whoever executed it better, which goes back to, you know, in the wild card case, you're standing in front of those judges.
Right.
And you better, you better not get up there and just say, well, yeah, we put on a smoker and put it on there for a couple hours and that's it.
And even just standing in front of the judges like that is kind of intimidating
Sure.
for someone like me. That's kind of, especially not knowing who these people are. To get up and talk about what I did.
Right.
There's always a little part of you in the back of the head. It's like I kind of feel like an idiot doing this. You can obviously see what I have here, but that comes down to the whole. It's the show portion of it.
That's
You
right.
know.
Which is important because at the end of the day, outside of competition barbecue in and of itself is a people business. It is all about people coming together, breaking bread, building relationships, getting to know one another, and it's about eating great food. So I think I think that part of it to me is really really cool in the way that they do that. And I thought the execution of the event as a whole. I mean, I had to do a double take at one point because I look over and there's this lady on stilts that must be 20 feet high in the air.
Right.
So let's
And
just
in the
say,
rain.
and in the rain. That's right. Let's just say Famous Dave's knows how to throw a party, because they had, I'm speculating here, but they had to have several thousand people come through there that day.
I would believe
Um,
so. Yeah.
so one other thing that is different. So we've talked about the chicken, we've talked about the ribs. That's pretty standard with KCBS. The wild card, of course, is way different. But the other thing is the People's Choice section of this. And of course, I know when I say the words People's Choice, eyes start rolling, I get the grumbling, the groaning. I get it, I understand. But in this case, the People's Choice actually is a category, and now it only pays
Yes.
out first place. But the winner in this case it was Bert with PB and J's. He won the People's Choice, but you can get a golden ticket. So it's not just I feel like with KCBS People's Choice, it's cool if you win, but the competitors probably don't really care. If I'm
Yeah.
being real.
I mean,
But in
for
this
KCBS, I would never do it.
right in this case though, there's a golden ticket on the line. So let's talk about that part of it. What did you do for the wing category, and what was it like interacting and trying to get people to give you those blue tickets?
So, for the wing category, I did exactly what I did for the turn-in for chicken.
Sure.
I cooked the wings the same way, except for I had to use a couple extra cookers because I think there was a little more than 200 wings. Um,
It's possible.
I'm pretty sure there was a couple hundred extra. So I did it the same way. The People's Choice. It's kind of a love-hate relationship,
Right.
right? So this would have been my second People's Choice that I've done this year. And nothing against what Famous Dave's is doing about it. I believe that there needs to be, and nothing, not taken away from anyone who wins it. Just this is in my opinion only. There was a lot of confusion from what I saw in the People's Choice, not just here, but in any People's Choice. Because if you're walking from one tent to another tent or trailer to trailer, by the time you get to someone else's, you may have already forgotten what you've already tasted. I had this
Right.
issue down at, I did a contest earlier this spring, Father's Day weekend down in Hillsdale. It was a pork butt challenge, pork butt cook. And they were raising money for the Parks and Rec. So for 50 bucks, you go down there, cook a couple pork butts, which I couldn't even buy at the store right now if I tried, for 50 bucks. And they gave me, I think, 6. But People's Choice, you had 20 teams all doing People's Choice. And they had a little QR code that you tape on your table and you pick your team. Well, the lines were so long that, like, again, by the time you got to team number 4, you forgot what team number 2 tasted like.
Right.
So what I saw at Famous Days was some people thought you had to turn the ticket in to get a wing. So you had
Yes.
that kind of, so, the People's Choice, could it be set up a little bit differently? Maybe. It was fun.
Sure.
It was kind of, I think we were trying to, I know at least on our end, we were trying to rush because I think that was a highlight of when the rain was coming down.
It was.
So
Yeah.
you're trying to keep people moving along. Not that you're trying to get done with it quick, but you're trying to get them going because they're in the rain.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't have umbrellas. And then you're doubling them up because you're trying to keep the rain off the wings you're handing out the window. And then that's smearing up your sauce. So you're doing extra sauce. Um, all in all, they're fun. You get to interact with people.
That's right.
A lot
That's
of times you
exactly
get
right.
a lot of times you get to see someone come back 2 or 3 different times.
Sure.
Oh, I need one for my brother. Oh, hey, I don't, take as many as you want,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about is, feeding the people and
Right.
competing a little bit at the same time. And like you said, certainly it is challenging with People's Choice how to really organize it in such a way where, everyone is, I guess it's more streamlined. Maybe it's the best way. One time I have seen it done where all the People's Choice is put on a table, and so it's like right down the line. But again, if you got 20 teams, even if it's all on one table, you know, I get to the 18 or 18, 19. I don't know what 4 and 5 tasted like at that point,
Right.
So, well, 20 tastes good. I'll put the ticket in there. Like
Yeah.
it can be a little bit difficult, and I think it is more fun than anything. I
Yeah.
just like the fact that the WFC, the World Food Championships. I like the fact that they do put some weight on it. That hey, it's not just a here's a $50 check and you get to come on stage and shake hands. It's no, you get a golden ticket and you get a couple $100.
Yeah.
So you
And
know
you get to compete with on the big stage.
that's right down in
I think,
Dallas.
and I know Skippy, his wings were great. He's a great cook. He's a great mentor, really, too. That guy's probably got more barbecue knowledge than I would ever hope to have.
Sure.
I'm glad he won it.
He also had great location.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, great location. But his wings were great. I mean, I had him and I was like, yeah,
yeah.
that's going to be tough to beat. So I wasn't surprised at all when he won. So as we wind things down, and again, for our listeners, we're talking to Chad Urbonovic. He's out of Lapierre, Michigan. QueFellas, that's QueFellas BBQ. First, where can our listeners connect with you? Where are you? I know you're on Facebook. What about Instagram?
I'm light on Instagram. I kind of do that. Well, I was doing that mostly for after the end of competitions, but I got out
Sure.
of it for a couple of years. So I kind of not really stepped away, just haven't posted much on that. TikTok is, mm, I'm still learning that one.
Sure.
That was a good babysitter for when I was at work. Keep me entertained while I was at work. That was as much as I kind of used it for. Um, I'm not a real big technology guy. That would be probably be about it.
Sure.
Facebook or a little bit of Instagram.
Make sure you check him out there. And again, as we wind things down, parting words of wisdom, right? From the grand champion of the Famous Dave's All-Star Challenge. What are some parting words of wisdom you have for cooking a EAT sanctioned WFC event?
um, do your research ahead of time. You know, think about what you're doing and start writing it down even weeks ahead of time, and tailor that down a little bit. You're only getting a little index card or 3 or 4 lines. You don't want to give them too much, but you don't want to not give them enough. Um, I guess interpretation is the best way I would do it. You give them something to where they can interpret it good. Um,
Right.
as far as and just have fun with it. That's the biggest thing I could think of right now is have fun.
Amen to
It
that.
it
Yeah,
leaves you, like I said, it leaves your imagination open. Try something, new that you wouldn't normally do.
that's exactly right. He's Chad Urbonovic. He's with QueFellas BBQ out of Lapierre, Michigan. Chad, we appreciate you coming on the show, my friend.
Not a problem. And good luck this weekend. You're going to Montana this weekend, right?
I am indeed.
Well, good luck out there.